Today's episode is sponsored by Visual Components, the next generation of 3D manufacturing simulation and robot offline programming software. Visit them at visualcomponents.com.
Aerospace and defense manufacturing.
Machines and automation.
Additive manufacturing.
Smart manufacturing.
The global manufacturing economy.
Welcome to Advanced Manufacturing Now, the podcast for manufacturing professionals, powered by SME. From the design screen to the shop floor to final assembly, we drive the conversation about making manufacturing smarter by connecting people who are passionate about manufacturing.
Hello, and welcome to Advanced Manufacturing Now, the podcast for manufacturing professionals. I'm Chris Mahar, Managing Editor at SME Media, and your host today. We're joined by Graham Locke, Director of Business Development at Visual Components, who's currently at Smart Manufacturing Experience in Pittsburgh. At Visual Components, Graham has recognized the imperative for adaptability in an ever-changing market. He's been instrumental in driving sales growth and forging some business opportunities. He's really a seasoned professional, over a decade of experience addressing and understanding customer challenges, and before Visual Components, he was a mechanical designer at Knight Global. Throughout his career, he's excelled in developing custom solutions tailored to individual needs and goals, fostering enduring relationships with the Visual Components user community. Visual Components is a leading developer of 3D manufacturing simulation software and solutions. In 1999, a team of simulation experts had the humble goal of making manufacturing design and simulation technology easy to use and accessible to manufacturing organizations of all sizes. They offer machine builders, system integrators, and manufacturers a simple, quick, and cost-effective solution to design and simulate production lines. With solutions for manufacturing design, sales, and application development, Visual Components software is trusted by hundreds of organizations worldwide to support critical planning and decision-making processes. Today, Graham and I are going to be diving into the importance of simulation for manufacturers of all sizes and the impact it can have on shop operations. So thanks for joining us, Graham. Welcome to the show.
Hey, happy to be here.
Can you just take a moment here to introduce yourself for those listeners who may not be aware?
Yeah, like you said, my name is Graham. I've been with Visual Components in the manufacturing space for 11 years now. Got my start doing mechanical design. I got to see how individual pieces would fit into production. So it was a pretty easy shift to be able to take all of those different operations and different processes and kind of step back and see that big picture. It's always been something I've loved. I've always liked the attention to detail and making sure that each little piece does exactly what it's supposed to. So the whole overall process or picture or goal or whatever it is you're doing works as efficiently as possible. So I love doing that. It started way back in the day, doing drafting with pencil and paper, and it's just kind of carried on to today. And in the manufacturing space with simulation software.
So sort of about that, we were talking a little bit before we started recording here, and you made a mention about your high school drafting class. Can you sort of share how that influenced your career path?
Yeah. Drafting back when I was in school is a little different than it was today. You didn't have all the 3D capabilities. You didn't have I just messed up, I'll just move this line and put this here and do something a little different. You were using pencil and paper. Every line you put down, it made a difference. You kind of had to have a plan. You had to decide how you wanted to do it, where you wanted to start, because if you start on the wrong details, it's harder to do other measurements or other lines. So, that really got me in a mindset where you have to really kind of understand what you want the end result to be before you even get started. And, manufacturing's a lot the same way where, you kind of have to know what you want at the end before you start. Otherwise, it's not going to be pretty.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, having done hand-drawn drafting in high school myself and so much vellum and having to start over, I know what you're talking about. But, as things have changed and drafting certainly has, but especially even since the pandemic, we're seeing a much more fast-paced world. And for manufacturers, we're beginning to see where, agility is starting to trump size. What is sort of the impact of this shift been on the manufacturing sector?
Well, I think what you just said kind of is the key is if things are going well and you don't really need to make a lot of changes, nothing really happens. People are good with status quo. People are, good with that whole, we've always done it this way. But with the pandemic and supply chain and labor shortages, people really started having to think outside the box. The comfort zone was very disrupted, and people had to start thinking of new and better ways to do it. And, it's not one of those things where you get to make 5 or 6 or 7 mistakes and then figure it out. You really have to get it right the first time. Everybody started saying, automation, we have to do this. And, there were a lot of people that didn't understand what that meant and didn't understand where to start. And, automation for the sake of automation is almost always a mistake. You have to have a plan. You have to know where you're going to get your biggest ROI. You have to, go in and understand how changing one process can affect the larger workflow. Manufacturing isn't in silos. A production is a living, breathing system. And you can have the most perfect Op 50, but if Op 70 can't handle it, well, then your net gain is 0. So a lot of people have to start, looking at that big picture, have to look at that resource process planning, and really know what they want to end with, and then figure out how to do it. And if you can do it in a virtual environment, well, even better, because then you're making data-driven decisions. And then when you finally do your implementation, it's exactly what you think it is. And it's not a mistake on an Excel sheet or, a PowerPoint that went wrong. And I think that's, where being able to very quickly shift in that visual 3D space has really let manufacturers take their planning and take their production to the next level.
I think you really hit upon a key point of you can't just wing it anymore. And I know when I started in manufacturing, I was working in a small shop. I swear I don't think we ever had a plan when we started anything. And somehow we figured it out. But it's a much different world today than it was back then. And so, I think this is, I think you'll agree with me, this is really where simulations becoming a much stronger and key point in use technology for manufacturers. As things get more complicated and advanced, and you have a lot more moving pieces as well. So let's, sort of say from an integrator, who's going to implement a new cell or line. For them, why is simulation a critical step?
Well, the simulation is a cradle to grave. It should be used at every step in the process, right? As an integrator, you talk to different types of engineers, right? You talk to the engineer who wants to do something but isn't sure exactly what to do. You can talk to the engineer that knows what he wants, but for the life of him, he can't actually explain it, right? And then the last engineer is the worst one. It's the guy that knows what he wants, can explain what he wants, but it's not going to work. And it's not going to work, but good luck convincing him that his idea is not valid, right? So when you take all these different scenarios and situations you get into, having a tool where you can visualize it and you can quickly capture concepts and ideas and bring it to the table and say, is this what you're looking for? Because if you do this, this is what you're going to get. And you visually can have them see that. You can get buy-in all the way up the chain of command. You're not talking to the guy that signs the checks with a PowerPoint and an Excel sheet saying, trust me, this is going to work. You're able to go in there and say, look, you can understand it. If you have questions, let me know. The 10 meetings that you have to get everybody on the same page, what if you could do that in 2 meetings? because you have that visual representation and the data to back it up. So when, you talk about, small to medium companies, if you're going into to bid a job, people make data-driven decisions. That's what this world has turned into. Prove to me that it works. Show me you know what you're talking about. If a small to mid can go in and compete against somebody that's not doing that, and the craziest thing is it's the large companies that push back on this the most. They're the ones that are entrenched in how they've been doing it for years. So if a small to mid goes to this companies and says, look, here's what I got, here you can see it, here's the proof, and they turn around to that big company and say, where's your simulation? Say, oh, we don't do that. I mean, who's got the advantage then? So it's, really from the very beginning and sales and those concepts and ideas to application engineering, to offline robot programming, to controls validation, simulation can knock down all those communication silos and really get everybody on that same platform, to really optimize that process and make the integrator and the customer experience better. So that's kind of where that fits in.
I'm convinced we all know that guy that will tell you that everything is going to be fine right until the canoe goes over the side of the waterfall.
Oh, it's bad.
So, let's take it from a little bit of a different approach. So, if I'm a manufacturer and I'm looking to launch a new manufacturing plant, or maybe I'm expanding my current shop, where is simulation playing a role in that aspect?
Well, I think the most exciting application for simulation is when you got a clean slate and anything's possible. From putting lines together and lining up processes to literally putting the different departments on different spots in the plant floor to look at the outcomes of product flow. Is the paint booth supposed to be next to assembly, which is supposed to be next to kitting, which is supposed to be next to whatever. And you can literally move all of those around and see how those are going to interact before you do anything. You have four walls and it's a clean slate. It's honestly the best way to understand the entire process, start to finish, rather than, put in a bunch of different lines and a bunch of different processes and then try and figure it out. If you can do it as you go, if you can run your what-if scenarios, if you can even to the point of getting guys on the shop floor involved and say, here's the station, here's the process, here's the job, what do you think? You can start, and through simulation, you can do it in a virtual reality environment. You can do interactive VR, you can do, training and stuff. So, you can get a lot of feedback, not only on just flow, but on actual, production process. Imagine if you hit that switch on that new line in that new plant and the employees have a vested interest in the outcome. If everybody feels like they got their say and they're not complaining about the guy that designed the process, not understanding how it's actually done, it really does create that seamless transition from digital to actual real world without having to do, coming in after the fact and putting out fires and cleaning up messes and doing things that were overlooked the first time that could have been done right had they been looked at in the larger scope of the project. So again, very exciting to be able to really, from product in the door to product out the door and shipping, to be able to see all those pieces and how they interact is really exciting in simulation.
So especially for a small to mid-sized manufacturer, they're usually not very large. They're running on much tighter margins. They have staff shortages that everybody's dealing with these days. I have to imagine that this is really helping speed up that time in getting new equipment or processes moving and hopefully cutting down the amount of bad parts that you have once you start before you get everything tuned as needed.
Oh, absolutely. And this is, again, the perfect tool for those small to mids because, I've always, one of my favorite sayings is it's not the big that eat the small, it's the fast that eat the slow, right? You've seen it as technology in the last, 20 years even has really come on strong. You look at Blockbuster not buying Netflix. You look at, a company like Canon saying, oh, don't worry, everybody, no digital cameras, that's just, whatever. And now everybody's got them on their phones, right? Companies like Borders, people, they'll still come in. Nobody will buy books on Amazon. And you see where that gets you. So when you see these small companies and they're able to, adopt these technologies and they're able to do things that maybe previously were unavailable to them, and by that I mean like big picture understanding, showing the data, and really having the confidence in what they're proposing. By being able to bid on jobs like that, by being able to compete in the marketplace, you're doing things that some of the big companies can't. You're showing that you're forward thinking. You're showing that technology as a tool is something you embrace and you're not, stuck 20, 30, 40 years ago. And it's amazing that, some of these large companies, they're doing it all on whiteboards, and they're doing it in PowerPoints, and they're doing it, imagine that versus here's a running simulation. Here's the data from it. So, yeah, I mean, it's huge in those small to mids. It's huge in being agile. It's huge in taking a day to put together a simulation. And then when you've got a request for a change, couple clicks of a mouse, you move some stuff around, and you've got more data. So, when it also comes to responding to those changes and being quick and being, taking those lead times down, simulation is a incredibly useful tool and really has a lot of benefit.
So we all sort of know that manufacturing is an industry that's literally creating the most advanced technology that we have, and yet at the same time can sometimes be slow to change and to get folks on board with something new. How can simulation sort of facilitate that process of gaining like a stakeholder approval or, getting your boss to understand that this change could benefit everyone?
Well, part of it is because simulation can be used from like the beginning to the end, cradle to grave, everything in between. You're not shopping for a proposal tool one day, and then for an application engineering tool the next day, and then a robot programming tool the next day. In a lot of these companies where, there's more request for more complete integrations. Nobody wants to deal with just a conveyor company. They want a conveyor company that does robots and machines. They want the whole picture, one-stop shopping. And simulation can be the same way, where it does all of those parts of the manufacturing process. And when you start to look at these, all these individual pieces and how they work together and how they improve communication and how they enhance, culture and life and process and everything else, when you sell up the chain, and you look at all those benefits down, integrators, it should be a no-brainer. When you take a look at all the benefits it can provide, not just today, but as you scale into other areas, as you try to do different things, as you try and expand your market, and by doing that with a visual representation to bring people on board that are numbers guys. The guys that design the processes and the guys that sign the checks, not the same guy. So in order to, internally to the integrator, get everybody on the same page, and then have that visualization of the data when you go to sell your vision, I mean, that's huge for everybody involved in the process. And hopefully, as more of these small to medium companies want to be quicker and more agile and more productive and faster, they start beating the big companies. And then those big companies start to take notice and say, hey, maybe we should do this too. And that just, continues the cycle of the digital transformation when it comes to manufacturing.
So, really, I think simulation is extremely helpful when you're starting to get to a very specialized process. There's certain things that, removing, 2 millimeters of steel, we've done it the same way for 40 years, and there's only so much advancement you can get it. But, when you're talking specialized processes, let's say we'll go with something that everybody knows, such as, everybody knows how to gut a fish. Say that sarcastically, of course. But, if we were, let's say, working in a manufacturing operation where they are handling fish gutting, which is a very specialized process, how does simulation apply to that?
But simulation applies to anybody that has a process. And as an example, yes, we just did a project where, there's a lot of in the fishing industry, there's a lot of you catch it, you process it, you freeze it, and you ship it on the ship. And they're trying to automate some of those processes. And Excel sheets are only going to get you so far. You've got limited space. You've got, limited things you could use. So they wanted to see what that looks like. And we came up with a process. We added some machines. We did a little bit of a different flow. And we were able to make them real happy. And it's not just, it's every industry. We worked with a car wash last year, and they wanted to use our painting application to show what the coverage would look like based on where they put their nozzles for spraying in the car wash. And we were able to run a bunch of different car bodies through and show them what that coverage would look like. We've worked with companies in the agricultural space that their product is legal in some states and not legal in others. But again, that's a new kind of fringe industry, but they want to automate. They want to look at better ways to do things that have been done the same way forever. So there's always things you can do. Virtually any industry out there. I mean, people always think about, making product or automotive or aerospace and things like that. Well, while we work in all those, like you said, it's the specialty ones that are kind of exciting to be able to take a whole new industry and provide them with something that they've never even considered and make them more productive and have the results that they're looking for. Those new industries are always really exciting and a lot of fun for my team to dig into.
So, oftentimes when, setting up new programming for a new part or something that you're creating, it a lot of times has been on machine, online programming, you're testing it and you're running through billets as you're trying to fine tune it. Can simulation help with offline programming and how can that sort of accelerate the programming speeds?
Oh my God. I mean, you're talking, you can speed that process up by 10 times. And that's even conservative if you ask me. From concepts and ideas and just finding what your reach of your robot needs to be. If you know your reach and you know your capacity, you're 90% of the way there. But then when it comes to the actual programming of robots, if you can do it offline in a virtual world and get 90% of your process done, if you're looking for welding or gluing or sealing or painting, those could potentially be some very complex paths. And if you've got a pendant and you're trying to do it online, you could take weeks. If you do it offline, you can do it in 3 clicks of a mouse. You can identify a surface, identify your parameters, and all of a sudden you've got 1,000 points staring you in the face. So if you're able to do these, and this also, it's important to note that you don't need equipment on the floor. You don't need the robot to be installed. You don't need the rest of production to have things there for you. You can do all virtually. Imagine if you were able to, do all of your offline programming, then you were able to do your controls validation before installation. Guess what? Your guys are now more productive because they can move on to the next project. And then when it is actually installed, you're just doing touch-ups. You're making sure it all works because you've already done the hard part. So you're able to actually, bring that manufacturing process forward. A lot of times, installation is late. There's a delay with a product. You can't get the robot on time. You're supposed to flip the switch next Tuesday, and the controls guys haven't even been on the floor with the equipment. They get it running and they're hands off because it works, but it doesn't mean it's optimized. So if you're able to do a lot of that stuff offline, I mean, again, the end result is better. You're not, killing your guys, making them work 72 hours straight to make a opening or flipping the switch on the plant. So, I mean, it really allows the technical side of it to get pulled ahead very, very early on in the process, and makes the installations, the startups, and everything else just that much better and easier.
I think that's a great point. The ability to drastically cut down the amount of time from installation to startup and running is just tremendous and can make such a huge impact. So, all right, I'll be honest, you've sold me on simulation. I'm now trying to figure out how I can buy this, and we publish magazines, but maybe I can convince my boss to buy me a new toy. But I'm probably a little afraid to ask this question, but with all the benefits that simulation offers, what percentage of the manufacturing industry is actually utilizing it?
If I had to throw out a number, it might be 10 to 15%. And the companies that are using it to its full potential is even lower than that. People are, again, scared in their ways. They're set on how they do things. Or they'll say, we're so busy, I don't have time to, invest in a resource to learn how to do it. And they just keep kicking the can down the road when, the way that simulation is done today, where it's process based, it's point and click, it's drag and drop down menus. They get started really easy. It's not from simulation from 30 years ago where it's expensive. You need an advanced computer science degree to do. You need hardware to go with your software. I mean, it runs on a laptop. You put it on your phone for some of our applications. So it's made a shift with Industry 4.0 over the last couple of years. People are more and more interested. I'm waiting for the day when it goes from a complete novelty to an absolute necessity in manufacturing. Where companies, anytime something is proposed, the first question that should be asked is, what did the simulation say? And we're getting in, we're moving in that direction. It's picking up steam. But again, that day where everybody uses it to its full potential is a day I look forward to.
So with such a tiny percentage, really, I mean, 10 to 15% is a lot smaller than it should be. What are sort of the barriers to universal adoption that we're facing?
The one we've been hearing most is just the resources, the misconceptions that like I said, just went along with simulation from years past. Everybody's now watching that bottom line, super close. Because, let's face it, continuous improvement that gives you 5% might not be good enough anymore, where in years past 2 or 3% was just fine. So, there's a perceived risk. Time and effort, and a lot of people, especially with larger companies that may have already been using something or may have been bit by an incomplete simulation offering in the past, they can be scared to make that change. So, it's up to us just to create the awareness of how easy it is. how it's meant for everybody, how it's scalable and grows with you as your needs continue to evolve. And it's really that tool that, is that common denominator across, multiple disciplines and multiple departments. And I think once people see that and really, understand what that means on the bottom line, it really does become a no-brainer.
So I want to be cognizant of your time, knowing you're there at the event, but to sort of wrap us up, with all of these benefits, all of these capabilities, and the improvements that have happened to simulation over the years, if someone wanted to start leveraging simulation, we want to grow that 10 to 15%, what are the first steps to take?
It's funny. I said this recently, but the first step is kind of admitting there's a problem. Nobody's manufacturing is perfect. Nobody's completely optimized. Nobody is, got it down to that extent without simulation. And I would say that the first thing, when you want to get into simulation is to identify a problem. Pick something that needs to be fixed. There's a lot of companies where you say, we want to fix this. And I ask them, how long has that been a problem? The guy's like, well, ever since I've been here. Well, then that's not really a problem. It's just kind of a way of doing business, right? And we're not interested in that. We're interested in those people that have identified problems, bottlenecks, issues that want to, invest in a tool that will provide a solution. So that's really the thing. Don't expect to buy simulation and be in the NVIDIA Omniverse and doing, digital twin tomorrow. That's not what simulation is for. Simulation is for, being proactive and not reactive. It's to prevent you from having to put out fires. It's to make you more efficient. It's for you to be able to sell your vision. It's for you to be able to do more with less. And then as your needs grow, it's important that you have that tool that will grow with you. So again, you're not shopping for a new solution tomorrow. So pick something. Pick the biggest issue you have. Pick the biggest problem you have. Pick the thing that keeps you up at night, the thing that you lose sleep over, and get a hold of a simulation provider. Anybody really. I mean, and I'm a big advocate for simulation. Get a hold of somebody and see what simulation can do for you. See how simulation can address that problem. See how going from reactive to proactive can make your life and your company and your business and your bottom line, ultimately better.
Well, Graham, thank you so much for this. I know things are really busy for you there at Smart Manufacturing Experience. We need to get you back out on that show floor so we can grow that 10 to 15%. So really, thank you for taking the time to join us. It definitely was an interesting and really illuminating conversation. So if listeners wanted to learn more about visual components, specifically, where should they go?
The best place is to the Visual Components website at www.visualcomponents.com. They can look at some of our case studies. They can see the applications and the industries we serve. If you wanted to, there's actually a lot of stuff on YouTube. A lot of engineers like to show off some of the simulations they've done, some of the layouts they've made. So rather than just, relying on us to tell you how amazing we are, you can actually go see, visually, because that's what we're all about. You can see some of the things that have been done, and there is some really cool stuff out there. Some of it's, actual manufacturing. Some of it's, things that are more like, games and we've played with. But either one of those spots is a really good way to see a little bit more about simulation and what we do. And there's obviously contact forms that'll get you a hold of the guys on my team. And we'd be more than happy to sit down and talk about solutions with you.
Well, I know absolutely what I'm going to be watching now while I eat my lunch. So if you want to also stay up to date about what's happening in manufacturing today and hear more podcasts, visit us at advancedmanufacturing.org.